Reconvene the meeting of August 23rd, 2010, Valley View Public School District Unit District 365U. Who knows what 365U means, by the way? Anyone? Let's see. Oh, wait. I know. Okay, we'll start over here. Rachel? 365 days a year. How much excitement was that for the kids? Probably not a lot. Mr. Evans, Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Curran.
Valley View School District 365U and the Board of Education, in partnership with the diverse community we serve, will maintain a safe environment for students and staff by providing encouragement for engaged learning opportunities that result in continuous improvement for all students.
Dr. Schofstall, agenda revisions.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, we would ask you to amend Action Report 4053. Due process, as originally stated, was A through C, and now it is A through E. We also would ask you to amend the Consolidated Action Report 4061. That would include some adjustments in employment offers. It would also accept the resignation of Principal John Sparlin, and I would add that Derek Kinder be moved to acting principal pending the posting of that vacancy, which would go up tomorrow morning, and we would then receive applications for that position.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Kern?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Campbell, Evans. Roll call, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Kern?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Consent agenda items as recommended.
Consent item 1 through 5, we would ask for your approval. We do note that there is a slight adjustment needed on the board minutes, and that adjustment will be made in terms of the vote. And we mistakenly have Member Bull present when he was not able to be here. We gave him an assignment even though he wasn't here, and we'll make that correction as well. The Bolingbrook High School girls track team has asked for permission to do an overnight competition in Peoria in September. Student activity contract for Oakview Elementary School is a fundraiser, and as you know, we bring fundraiser contracts for your approval. And we're also looking for approval to grant an easement with Commonwealth Edison regarding construction at Lindsay Lane and Lily Cash. Those are the consent items.
Any discussion? Motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Motion, seconded.
Voice vote.
Voice vote, please. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Liaison reports. Mr. Bull.
The Wilco Center had their first board meeting last on the 15th, and a few little things that you might say is that they're going to have the largest enrollment they've ever had. They're going to have over 1,000, almost 1,100 kids enrolled in the school this next year. The audit was finished the week before the meeting. Also, there was a replacement for Dave Carlton as the vice president on the board. So they start tomorrow also. So they're excited about the increase that they have in pupils.
Any others?
Steve, I just have two quick things. I want to congratulate Mayor John Noka in Romeoville for the grand opening of their new village hall. All the residents here in the community should be very excited, as well as staff here within our district. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of projects and things the communities can partner on. It's a fabulous facility, and he's done great things with the leadership there in that community. On a much more solemn note, I want to pass along my sincere sympathies to the family of David Hargett, who was a Foundale Library Board member who passed away today from a bout of cancer. So please keep him and his family in our prayers. Dave was a very active member of the library board, somebody that truly cared about the passion of that interest, and he will be missed. And it's a sad thing. Liz just reminded me also of Romeoville Village Clerk Ray Holloway. I guess we'll get it all out of the way now instead of the end of the meeting. But his family as well, our sympathies go out to them. Village Clerk Ray Holloway passed away last week, Saturday, I believe, the day before.
Correct, yeah.
Or Friday, day before the grand opening. So. Again, keep those folks in your thoughts. They put a lot of time and efforts into what they do.
While we're on committees or liaison reports, Member Gugis has requested, and I agree, that we should create an academic committee, and it would be my suggestion, recommendation that Rick be the chair of that committee, and he will be seeking another board member to sit on said committee, as well as some folks who are in the audience and some folks from the community as well. Rick, you want any comments on that? Or?
I think to reflect our values, it's time that we've had that committee. We have a committee on almost everything. It's very interesting that we have not had a committee on academics. So this committee will be board directed, be a little different than some of our other committees.
Would that be in addition to the district IDM committee that goes through and looks at all the academics and used to have board members on it, or that same?
This will be new. This will be different, completely separate.
Rick, maybe what I would suggest is having, maybe a meeting with Faith and Phil, and
For
maybe
sure.
we need to get a representative from each of these standing committees at the staff level that exist, and maybe having somebody that can report back.
We will
to-
definitely have that meeting, and also we'll be soliciting members of the community that are interested.
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea.
RDM,
Instructional decision-making.
thank you very much.
I should have said that ASAP, haha.
Correct.
Any other committee reports? Liaison reports, I'm sorry. Audience participation. Anybody from the audience wish to address the board this evening? Seeing none. Action reports. Dr. Schaafstal.
First action reports number 4053, that would be student due process. We recommend you approve cases A through E that have been produced for your information.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Kern?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Dr. Schaafstal.
Next item is, you have before you a list that you have received now 2 meetings for executive session minute review. As you know, that's a requirement by the Illinois State Board of Education that such review be conducted 2 times during the year. We have a list of the executive session minutes that we were asking you to release, and we would also ask that you consider destruction of tapes that precede January 1, 2009.
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, could you just clarify that a little bit, that we're not hiding anything, that these are statutes and we can get rid of this at a time? Because I see looking like.
Mr. Alpern, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The law requires that when the executive session minutes are approved, those minutes become the official record of the meeting, and the law then makes it optional and allows the board then to destroy the tapes, the audio tapes of that meeting, which are no longer the official record of that meeting. Governmental entities that we're familiar with, actually all of them that I'm familiar with, do destroy the tapes once the minutes have been approved by the board.
Thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just how often does the law say that we're able to do that? This is just for our listening audience.
You have to review those tapes every 6 months, or excuse me, review those minutes every 6 months, and then it is up to the board as to whether the board decides to destroy the audio tapes or not, once the minutes are approved. But the minutes have to be approved first.
Wasn't the genesis of this that the regional superintendent of schools cited us for not having some kind of process? So we had to create a process because we have.
That's correct.
We're correcting that.
Right, we're making a correction to what the regional superintendent
Right.
of schools has asked us to do.
Any further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Kern?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Dr. Shostov.
Next item is Action Report 4055. This is the second reading of Board Policy 7-31 OR. It's administrative procedure for distribution of non-school sponsored written material on school grounds. You have discussed this at length on the last several meetings, and nothing has changed from the last time it was presented to you on first reading, except the change from 4 hours, I think, to 24 hours of notification. Everything else is as was presented before.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Kern?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Next.
Next action report is 4056. That would be the co-curricular participation requirements. As you'll recall, at the last meeting, and indeed predating the last meeting, there was board discussion of the need to increase the GPA, or grade point average, for student participation. We're bringing you a recommendation tonight for your approval that would increase the minimum grade point average to 2.0. We would implement this new policy for all extracurricular activities that require an activity fee and participate in competitions. Effective this school year, all freshmen in the class of 2014 would need to have a cumulative GPA of 2.0 to participate. Sophomores, juniors, and seniors would in essence be grandfathered to have a 2.0 higher GPA only for the current semester in which they're participating. The other items on this policy change you have discussed. These are the ones that are most pertinent to the students. We would be sending information to the home of student participants. We would also certainly put this for the media release, and it would be listed on our website. And we have not determined yet whether it would be a good use of time to do a parent link because of the vagaries of how many students there are participating in different activities. Needless to say, we would get the word out to everyone. There is, I should mention also, a point in this policy that at the 3-month break, three-week break, students would be monitored to see if somebody is indeed struggling and maybe in danger of not participating, so that we could put interventions in place that would help those kids see the light and improve.
Thank you, Dr. Shuffle. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, we need a motion, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, Mr. Gugis, Mr. Evans. Any
Uh,
discussion?
Just to clarify, you said at the 3-week point, in our memo, it states that every 3 weeks grades will be monitored, so they won't just do it at the 3-week point, every 3 weeks leading up to.
Right,
grading
and in most of the athletic participations, there's a weekly monitoring of student grades as well.
You know, I want to thank
We
you.
aren't, 1 second, we aren't lessening, we're
Yeah.
really strengthening.
I still would like to ask the board to consider adjusting this to add the recommendation that you need a 2.0 cumulative and/or current semester with no Fs. That 1 F would disqualify you as well. That's been placed in many other districts, and I think it's time we tell our students and our staff that failure is not an option.
Rick, you want to comment?
I wanted to first thank the administration. We had a very a study done that kind of let us know what happens in other school districts that have done this. And the interesting point that came out of that was that students meet people's our expectations. And you know, one of the things that's really funny, it's really been odd for me in this, is that some have thought this is a way to exclude students. And I just think that's such a flawed thought process, because what you're saying is you don't think our kids can do it. You know, when we say our students can reach a 2.0, I think it's simple. Our kids can do it if we believe that they can do it. I mean, we're not asking for 3.5. We're asking for a 2.0. It is not a very high bar to climb. We have very few students that participate in co-curricular activities right now that don't. We actually got the numbers. It was extremely small. So if you think this policy is about excluding students, that's a flawed thought process. And that means you don't believe in our kids. I believe in our kids, and I know that they can make this 2.0 jump.
I agree. Any other discussion?
Only.
You're going to make an amendment, Mike? Are you?
Any motion to, you want to make the motion?
Yeah, I would like to ask that we do that, so we would need to amend the contract. First, we would need a vote to agree to amend it, and I guess that's what I'm asking
Right.
first, if there's
Well,
even a
make
consideration.
the
to wanna
motion
do
and
that.
then,
You know, I'll motion to amend the current recommendation to include the requirement that you can have no Fs within your grading period.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? What's the,
You'd be taking a vote first on the
correct,
amendment?
correct.
And then approving, and then voting on.
And then voting on the motion as amended or as it was
Correct.
initially proposed?
So is that motion on the table or off
That's
the
what's on
table?
Motion's on
The
table.
current motion is the motion to amend.
And so now we have discussion.
Yeah, there's discussion on that allowed, correct?
That if you get an F, you can't.
If you get an F, you would go into this 3-week process, that whole,
Yeah,
is
and
that what you're?
you'd be excluded from.
But I mean, before the
extracurricular
exclusion, you would say a kid getting an F
activities. Absolutely.
would hopefully be caught in this
Part of that
3-week
3 weeks,
process.
yes.
Yep.
And
So
thereby.
at the 3-week periods, if they catch them and there's an F, they're eliminated from extracurriculars until
Right.
that F is brought to a D.
So they would say, let's get that F to a D,
Absolutely.
and overall, yeah.
In their process to a 2.0.
So you're talking about the F being something that's deserved at the 3-week period. If a youngster brings it to a D, that would allow them to continue if they have the 2.0.
At the end of the 6-week
As long as they make it
period.
to the semester without an F.
As long as they make it through the semester with no F, absolutely. At the end of that semester, they need a 2.0 with no Fs.
So they could have an F at the 3 weeks, or we talking about progress time and not at semester time?
Correct.
Yes. Right, Mike?
Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah.
The original intention is that you can't have 4 A's and an
2.0
F.
with no Fs.
And still, yeah, okay.
So
You can have 4 A's and a D.
You need to have a.
So at the 3-week, the 6-week, how long is the semester? 9, 12, 15, 16?
18.
18 weeks.
So at the 3-week, the 6-week, the 9-week, the 12-week, 15-week, they could potentially have an F. As long
Correct.
as they had it to a D
By the
by the 8th.
semester.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm good.
Okay. We good with that? All right, we have a motion and we
Hold on,
have
wait.
a second.
Hold on, you need to take a
On-
vote on the motion to
Correct.
amend. To amend.
Correct. Roll call vote, please.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Kern?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Now, we need a motion to accept this report or this action item as amended.
So moved.
I think you've already got the motion as amended. You just need to have any additional discussion or a vote.
We had the motion, okay, that's right, we already opened the motion. All right, any further discussion? I think this is going to be a good thing for the students. They're student athletes or student after-school program participants. They're not after-school
Yeah,
program
they're-
participants or athletes first.
They're students first, athletes second.
That's right. And I think Rick should be commended because he brought this up probably a year ago, and he said, we got kids who can, do whatever they can do athletically or some other ways, but they may not be able to qualify for an NCAA scholarship. So what's the point of that if you can't get into a school because you don't have the proper grade point average? So this is, I'm not saying it's in compliance with the NCAA, but it certainly helps when you come into an NCAA program with a 2.0 or higher. You can have a good ACT or a SAT, but still not have the GPA, and NCAA will put you on the watch list for participation, and you may not get a scholarship. So,
If you don't have a 2.0, you won't make it through the clearinghouse.
yeah,
You just-
exactly.
you gotta have
It's
one.
that simple. So, roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Kern?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Next, Dr. Schaafstal.
We have one more action report from me, and that is your approval of the area project, Unity Area Project with DUCAP. The contract has been approved by school attorneys and the DUCAP Authority attorneys, and we simply would ask you to approve this to allow the after-school program entitled Choices to be offered in our schools.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? Anybody want to just explain what DUCAP is for the purposes of educating the public? Besides, it's an intervention for at-risk junior high students.
That's primarily what it is. It's
Okay.
a program that will run at BJ Ward, John R. Tibbet, Irene King. Programs primarily for 2nd through 4th grades. Can be open for 1st and 5th grades if the enrollment falls below 30. Choices operate with a minimum of 20 students per session. They do after-school tutoring, after-school programs. It's really worked very well. It's a good program and one you would be foolish to deny.
Thank you.
They're currently at BJ Ward,
Tibbet and King.
And King, right? Yep.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Kern?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Faith, we're going to skip you, but you'll get your mic time
I'll make up for it later.
on. Yep. Mr. Gazafi.
Action Report 4058 is consolidated recommendation for our group life, long-term disability, specific stop-loss, and third-party administration insurance renewals. In the exhibit in your packet, there's a lot of information, a lot of numbers, along with an executive summary presented from our consultant, Mesereau, who certainly has proved their worth to us in the short term. It wasn't long ago that the board presented or approved bringing them on as our new insurance consultant. And so just kind of to expedite all of the information, the recommendation is to renew our life and long-term disability at a 20.5% decrease overall in premium, saving $70,782. Increasing our specific stop loss from $225,000 deductible to $250,000 deductible for an overall savings of 13.4%, or an estimated $114,000 in savings. We would continue to renew our third-party administration with Benefit Administrative Systems, or BAS, for a one-year term. They do have a rather significant increase, due primarily to the fact that we kept them pretty lean in their fees to us over the last 2.5 years. And so, again, we are recommending that we renew with them for 1 year, with the idea that we can early terminate should the need arise, with a January 1 program review coming up here in the short term. So again, I am recommending renewal of the life and long-term disability with Sun Life, along with the specific stop loss also with Sun Life, increasing that deductible to $250,000, and a maximum stop-loss reimbursement of $1.5 million. That's again on any specific one case, and that's for a one-year term. And then the final recommendation is third-party administration with BAS, or Benefit Administrative Systems.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion?
Gary, now on the TPA services, the recommendation is to go with them even though they're increased, but in January, we're gonna seek new quotes for that, or I heard you meant January renewal, and we can have it, there's no charge to terminate that relationship.
Correct. Until we see, we've got a program review actually this week.
Okay.
Looking at primarily a Jan 1 change, if any, not knowing what that program review would look like. We needed to have something in place.
Sure.
So that's
sure.
what we're doing
Okay.
here.
Okay.
But making sure that our options are indeed open to us.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Venegas.
Yes.
Member Evans.
Yes.
Member Gugis.
Yes.
Member Bull.
Yes.
Secretary Campbell.
Yes.
Vice President Kern.
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes. Gary?
Next in Report 4059 is the proposed 2010-2011 annual budget presented for your consideration. We will have this budget on display for 30 days for the community to review. Also, a hard copy here available at the Administration Center for anybody that may not have computer access. Our overall budget, as stated, is $742,761. Sorry, $243 million. Our operating funds, $220,828. Those numbers are a little off from what you have in your packet. We do continue to fine-tune this budget day to day. We're able to continue to find ways to bring those numbers down. So again, this is a decrease overall from last year. Our total local resources, unfortunately, what I had in the packet was last year's figures. Let me give you those new figures. The total local resources supporting our budget are $162,387,000, and that represents 73.2%. So 73% of our operations are supported locally, primarily with the tax dollars, along with any user fees and corporate personal property replacement tax. The state kicks in $39,816, roughly 19% of our overall operations. If you look at the state form, you might see a number as high as $63 million. That includes that fictitious on-behalf payment of $23,600,000, and that's the money that the state is supposed to pay on behalf of annuitants. That's primarily what's caused a lot of the havoc, if you will, with the state financial picture. But again, it's something that we're required to budget. So again, I like to pull that figure out because I think it artificially inflates what the state funds us directly to operate our district on a day-to-day basis. Federal dollars are almost flat from last year, $13,232,000, representing about 6.5% of our operations. So again, less than, actually it's a $70,000 decrease from last year. Right now we're down 15.45 positions in the certified ranks, 56.5 positions in the classified ranks. We did include an 8% increase for health claims in our budget, which is lower than it has been over years past. We did take into account the reductions that you just approved in the premiums for life, LTD, and stop loss. So those indeed have been incorporated. The tort fund has reduced by 7.5%. We've reduced workers' comp by 30% over last year's budget and 15.5% over the actual, reflecting the trend towards our lower overall claims experience, which I reported on last week, or last meeting rather. Since we started this process back in January, you may recall that we looked at a 5-year projection looking at FY11's deficit of just under $15 million. And so that obviously necessitated a lot of the workshops and budget reduction discussions that this board has had on the several occasions over the last 6-7 months. On August 2nd, the governor released what he termed his final budget, decreasing our state funding an additional $1.6 million primarily in 3 areas. Heaviest hit was transportation, just under $1.2 million. And so that's a real hit for our bottom line. Reading improvement block grant is down $250,000, and school safety and education improvement an additional $160,000. So that added to our overall deficit where we thought we were. Even though we've made $11.7 million in budget reductions for FY11 over last year, we're still left with a $4.8 million deficit for FY11. And so again, in the ensuing days between now and the 27th, when we'll present in a public hearing the budget and ask you to approve it, we will, again, continue to fine-tune, hopefully in ways to decrease our deficit. I have included in here the executive summary that, again, you're used to seeing. It gives you a sense of where we will be if that $4.8 million does materialize. And again, as has been the case, that's a worst-case budget. That means every line item being spent to zero. That rarely happens. And so starting the year with approximately $100 million in fund balance, if we did spend that $4.8 million deficit out of reserves, that would leave us with $95 million. If we back out the advanced taxes that we receive in June, again, getting us to a low point balance, that puts us in the $35 million range, with the state still owing us $5.2 million for FY10. So if we add that back in, we're at that $40 million, just under $41 million for a low point balance, which to me is the most important number for the board's focus. And I also included a fund balance worksheet to give you an idea of where that falls within our low and high points, both with the advanced taxes June 30 and without the advanced taxes in May. And so again, that puts us pretty square between a 60 and 90-day balance at the $41 million mark, using our reserves to shore up what is indeed a deficit budget for FY11.
What's the state still owes, 5.2 you said?
I'm sorry, yes, $5 million to be exact, $5,286,000.
At what point do we write that off of their lab spending? We're not gonna get that, I mean, we might get some, maybe.
They have given themselves until December 31st to make that payment. I don't really know what that means. We have to close our books by August 31st, so if we don't receive it, we will show that deficit in FY10.
Right.
If we do indeed, lucky enough to receive an FY11, we'll book it as a receivable.
How would you just come back and amend? We would come back and amend the
We could
audit?
come back and amend the budget, correct, because I did not budget that, not knowing where it's going to fall.
Right, okay. Well, we are where we are. I think the board should be commended for the budget being presented as it has been presented and will be out there for the next couple of weeks, or several weeks now, I guess. We labored long and hard. We have made $22 million worth of cuts in the last 2 years, more or less.
Yep.
And I'll stand by it. I don't think we've seen, or at least so far, we haven't seen much, if any, effect in the classroom. And hopefully, we'll be lean and mean. I don't know if anybody else here feels the same way, but I know we sat in this room many, many hours, and we had conversations about what was going to be needed and how tough it was going to be to make those cuts. But I think you should be commended for getting this all out there. And, you know, I've said it before to the folks sitting out there that the people on TV can't see, you know, talk to your legislators. They're the ones who approve the budget. The governor presents it, they approve it. So, you know, just think about that. They owe us $5 million. And obviously this is kind of a perfect storm situation with the economy being like it is and so on and so forth. You know, property values and so on and so forth. We're going to be affected by that next year as well. The state of Illinois has an obligation to the students of the state of Illinois and the families of the state of Illinois to fund education at above 50%. They don't. We're paying would you say 73%? Is coming from local monies. That's not 50%. So get that through some people's heads when you talk to them. If you see your legislators or anybody in your associations, you talk to the people in your associations and your unions and talk to your legislative leaders in those organizations and tell them the state of Illinois needs to step up and they need to fund education at appropriate levels. Plain and simple. How they go about doing that, that's their problem. We didn't run for that office. We ran for school board. So,
Just a couple more comments, if I might. I have not included any education jobs fund monies that was asked about, I think, at our last meeting. I think the state of Illinois stands to receive $415 million, 2.1 of which is earmarked for Valley View. As we sit here tonight, I don't know what parameters those dollars will be, how they'll be administered, what type of caveats will be attached to that. So again, that has not been incorporated into this budget. We may not know what the final state figures are until after the gubernatorial election in November. And even then, it's really dicey as to what our actual funding level is going to be. So again, I'm hopeful that what Governor Quinn has put forth is going to be it. But again, it would be anyone's guess. And certainly for the newest board member, Mr. Venegas, you'll have more information forthcoming, more in a summary format to give you an idea of where we are in terms of how much of our budget goes towards salaries, benefits, and so forth. The state form sometimes is a little difficult to navigate, so as I put that information together, I'll make sure you receive a copy of that. So,
Assistant Superintendent Grisafi, 2 questions for you. The low balance is between 60 and 90 days? Is that what you said? Can you narrow that range down any?
in terms of dollars?
No, in terms of days. I mean, that's pretty, is it 60 or is it 90, I guess is right?
Well, the 60 would be the low, 90 would be the high.
90 is the high.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Oh,
60
I'm
and
sorry.
90 would be the low and high points of the low balance.
And that fits inside the reserve budget process that we went through on the Finance Committee.
That's
We never
correct. That actually came right out of our
Okay.
Finance Committee. That's correct. And so with the $41 million low point puts us at square in the middle at 75 days.
Good. The other question I had was, some municipalities are, with their money owed to them by the state, because they have the exact number, are booking that in their receivables for this past year. How come we're choosing not to follow that option?
That typically would show up in your audit. It wouldn't show up on your budget in terms of a receivable. Really, the budget's July 1, June 30. I certainly could put it in there, but if I get it before then, it would not receive it in this fiscal year. We would book it in the last fiscal year, and that's a pretty big number to put in there, not knowing if it's going to come or not. I certainly could incorporate it. It's really just a
I just noticed that it seems to be how a lot of the local municipalities are planning.
I've talked to several colleagues. I mean, on the municipal side, they maybe do. We typically don't deal with receivables, just because we've typically gotten our money, whether it be prop taxes or state funding.
Okay.
The state's getting sales tax, the municipalities get sales tax on a fairly regular basis.
It's a,
Versus us getting a couple
we
big
could do it,
payments.
it's
Yeah,
just
motor
a,
fuel, too.
we're making a choice, and I was just wondering why we were choosing the one way.
And I don't want you to think for 1 minute we'll lose sight of that figure, and that's why I broke it out, because I think we do definitely need to make sure that we know it's not in our coffers.
We want the money. State of Illinois. We have a motion? We need a motion to accept Mr. Grisafi's report.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Who's second?
Pardon me?
Who's second? Jim. Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Curran?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes.
Action Report 4060 is a recommendation to approve electronic school board packet software. Board Docs Pro is being put forth tonight for an annual maintenance, support, installation, training, and customization cost of $12,000 and an implementation fee of one-time of $1,000 for a total cost of $13,000.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion.
Yeah. I'm
Mr.
kind
Bull.
of leery about talking about all the deficits that we've got now, and then we just, snap of the fingers, going to spend $13,000. I think there's other ways our administration didn't get raises, and there's a lot of places that we probably could have placed that money. And my feeling is, if we get the money, then maybe we'd do something like this. But at the point now, whether we know whether we're going to get the money or not, I'm kind of queasy about $13,000.
Any other discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. Take the roll.
Member Evans?
No.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Member Bull?
No.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Curran?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Next, where are we at? Ms. Hawks?
Thank you, President Quigley. Tonight, we're asking for your approval on the amended action report 4061, recommending certified, classified, and administrative personnel.
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Have a second? Discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Bull?
Yes.
Member Venegas?
Yes.
Member Evans?
Yes.
Member Gugis?
Yes.
Secretary Campbell?
Yes.
Vice President Curran?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes.
President Quigley, before we move on, you just approved our newest administrator in the action report.
Kinder?
No, well, yes, acting principal, but we have a new assistant principal at Lukanzik Middle School, Jacob Buck, and we want to welcome him. Jacob, if you want to come up and just say a few words.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Board of Education, Dr. Schofstall and his senior leadership team, and Lukanzik's principal, Mrs. Tricia Rollerson, for the opportunity to be the assistant principal at Lukanzik Middle School. It's truly an honor to accept this position and continue to work with the staff, students, and community that make up Lukanzik Middle School. Over the last 2 years at Lukanzik, I've had the privilege of working alongside a group of remarkable, student-centered educators. As we begin the 2010-2011 school year, we will continue to work to support our students and take steps to improve the academic success of all of our students. We'll be focusing our efforts and resources towards the goal of meeting adequate yearly progress. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
So we're going to hear from Derek?
As
Mr. Kinder?
Mr. Kinder, why don't you step up here? For those of you who are not aware, Mr. Sparlin tendered his resignation today, and I understand he is moving on to a assistant superintendent role at another school district. And the board met and we discussed Mr. Kinder as being the replacement player. So on day one, when school starts tomorrow, you're stepping up. So if you want to make a few comments, I'm sure we'd love to hear what you have to say, and I'm sure the people out there at Romeoville High School would like to hear what you have to say. I know you have a history there, but please.
Yeah, sure. First of all, good evening, President Quigley, members of the board, Dr. Schofstall, senior leadership, members of the audience, and members of the community at home. I'm going to speak a little bit later in the data presentation that I'm going to assist with Assistant Superintendent Dahlquist about some of the goals and the visions as far as that I have as a leader of Romeoville High School. But to say the least, this is a goal that I've had. It's a goal that I want to share in getting student achievement at the level that it needs to be at Romeoville High School. Most definitely, it's a daunting task, and I'll say that again in the presentation. But most definitely, it's a task that I'm ready for. I know that our staff is ready for, our leadership team is ready for, and our teachers are ready to be inspired and be led to inspire our kids to get to where they need to be. I appreciate this opportunity. I will not let you down. But like I said, waking up as an assistant principal, going into a Teacher Institute day, and going home to a board meeting as a principal is definitely an adventure. I enjoy it, and I look forward to tomorrow and greeting the kids tomorrow when they come in, first day of school.
It might be the only time you say you enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dahlquist?
Yeah, while Faith is coming down to the machine, I want to make a couple of comments that most people know, but I'm going to say them anyway. Testing has been important in American education since the Pilgrims landed. We have tested children time and time again from the beginning of public education. They have been classroom tests prepared by teachers. There have been state tests required by the various state governments. Been federal tests that recently came into being in the last 20 years with Elementary Education, Secondary Education Act, title programs, and most recently federal legislation with No Child Left Behind. I said 10 years ago that No Child Left Behind was a flawed system. It is a flawed system, it remains a flawed system, but it is the system. So it is not one that we can run away from. The requirements of No Child Left Behind undoubtedly will be changed within the next 2 years, because when we reach 2013, there won't be 100 schools in the United States that meet the requirements of No Child Left Behind. And that is, in my view, is a flawed system. The positive, and there is a positive, and it's a huge positive in No Child Left Behind, and it is that it has required school districts and schools all over the United States to pay attention that children in subgroups would not and were not receiving. Children in a subgroup of poverty, minority, language, disability, those youngsters did not historically receive the attention that they deserved. No Child Left Behind forced school districts to address the needs of those children. That is the single most redeeming factor to the legislation, and it's one that we can support. The intent tonight was to present for you a broad overview of the data that we've received as recently as today, so that you would have information upon which to make judgments in the days and weeks and months ahead as you receive additional input as the data is analyzed from staff members who can make and will make recommendations for improvement and enhancement of student achievement, which is, in fact, the main reason for No Child Left Behind. So with that, we're going to present an overview. Then we have asked representatives to be present to give you an elementary perspective, a middle school perspective, a high school perspective, and then a Romeoville High School analysis of their data.
Hey, thank you. The data that I'm going to present is the data from the spring tests. It includes the state testing that are done through grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and also grade 11. And I had hoped to be able to also offer some comparisons to other districts at this time, but that has not been released from the state and is still not available. So this evening is looking at our own district's data and also talking about the things that we need to do to improve. This graph that is shown up above is a history from the district. Again, this is K-12, all of the grades put together. And the line that's on an angle there shows what the requirement is for the No Child Left Behind. We needed to be at 77.5, and that's where that is. You can see that the gold is our reading scores over the year, and the blue is our math. This year is the first year that we did not make it in the overall category in reading. We're still hanging in there with math, but in reading this year we did fall below. And I'll go in and explain a little bit more what adequate yearly progress means in a moment. This is looking more into the data, and you have some trend data here from 2008, 2009, 2010. Again, this is reading in all the grades that are tested, which is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 11. Our reading scores did go down, and that is a concern, and we will definitely be addressing that later on in the presentation.
Assistant Superintendent Dahlquist?
Yes.
Is this our first year in several that we've had less kids meet or exceed in terms of from the prior year?
That we've gone down in areas?
In terms of meet or exceeds?
No.
Okay. What? Because last year we had more kids meet and exceed than they did the previous year, correct?
In the overall category.
In the overall category. In the year before?
Correct.
We did that. So it's been several years since we've...
If you go back.
Right. It's been several years since we had less kids meet and exceed. And I think I appreciate Superintendent Shawstall's comments about you know, particularly making AYP. I think really more of the focus on the board has been about growth. Are we growing from where we're at? You know, whether we make AYP or not, are we growing? And I think the first sign of concern, I think, because originally this was supposed to be a board workshop, so I'm going to still act like this is a board workshop. Originally, board members, you know, with the reading, why that scares me is if we're not even talking about AYP, we didn't make positive growth. You know, and that's what is really concerning for me is, as the superintendent said, going to 2014 and it has to be 100% is not probably going to happen. But we could at least expect to make positive growth. And that's a real concern. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about, you know, what's going on in reading. But as I look back the last couple of years, it looked pretty clear that most year we did that. And the state has come out with one number, and that is the ISBE has said that more districts and schools did not make AYP. However, the state has also said that more kids did make the meets and exceed standard than did it last year. And unfortunately, we don't find ourselves in that category.
That is correct.
I struggle when we don't keep up at least with the average of the state. We spend more money in general than the state average does on our students. We use only highly qualified staff.
Yes, there are some grade levels that went up more than the state. There are some grade levels that went up. There are other grade levels that went down. The aggregate does show that we went down. And if you'd like specific grade levels of which went up or down, I'm prepared.
Well, I know 11th grade because I know Romeoville went down 12. So I know 11th grade was not beneficial to that general process.
Correct.
We'll move on.
Okay. Again, this is the reading slide, and it shows our overall, also our different AYP subgroups that are listed there. The LEP stands for Limited English Proficiency. Those are our students that have not yet mastered English. They do take the test in English, but they still have the subcategory of LEP or Limited English Proficiency. Moving on to math. Again, this is all grades combined. Trend data from 2008, 2009, 2010. Just a slight bit of growth. Again, white students and black students went down. Hispanic went up. We saw some nice growth there with our limited English proficiency group of 6 points. At this point, I wanted to go in and explain making AYP. There are 4 conditions for making adequate yearly progress, or AYP. At least 95% of our students in each subgroup need to be tested. That's not an issue for any of our schools or as a district. We have to have at least 77.5% of those students tested, and they need to pass for math and reading. And that also is any of the subgroups, and I'll explain that a little bit later. We also have to have at least 91% attendance and 80% graduation rate, which is not an issue. Now this graph that you have in front of you, or grid that you have in front of you, is a little bit more complicated. This shows our Title I elementary schools, and our Title I schools are our schools that have at least 40% or more of a free and reduced lunch, and they have to follow the No Child Left Behind Act more closely because there are more consequences associated with not making AYP. If you look, these are some of the different categories that you need to be able to make that 77.5. There is the all category, white, black, Hispanic, Asian. LEP I already explained, and then IEP is our students with individualized education plan, our special education students, and then our economically disadvantaged students. Now, I did want to point out that a student can have several different categories. You could have a white student who's also in special education, who's also free and reduced. They would count 3, actually 4 times, because they'd be in the all category as well. You may also be wondering why some of the columns are blank. That means that there were less than 45 students at that school in that subgroup, because the state doesn't report out for the subgroup unless there are at least 45 students in that category at that school at the grade levels that are tested. You may also be seeing that there are some areas there where They got a yes. That means they made adequate yearly progress, but yet they're below the 77.5%. The reason that that happens is the state does set up safe harbor so that if a school or a subgroup was not meeting the year prior, they will look at the difference that they need to be made by 2014, divide it by the years that are left, and set up a safe harbor. And then if the school makes that target in the next year, they also can be counted as meeting AYP. Any comments or questions? I know it's a board workshop, so I don't want to hold you up. I also don't want to belabor the point.
I have some, but I'm going to let you go through. And then
Okay, that's fine. I did want to point out just briefly by looking at this, some of our schools, especially at the elementary level, house the bilingual program for the entire district. And this does not mean that the bilingual program, when you look at the differences in scores, if you take them out, is a poor functioning bilingual program. In fact, we do have a higher average of passing a test than the state does, and from some of our neighboring districts. But if you take out the students that are struggling with English and just do some comparisons across schools, you can see that that does cause the scores to go up.
About this slide?
Yes.
When you take them out, can you explain why you take them out and why the state doesn't send scores back to, isn't that why the state?
Sure.
Can you explain that a little bit?
For example, our Tibbet is an excellent example. They house the bilingual program for several of our schools, because not all of our schools have the bilingual program. The state keeps all of those scores for Tibbet, but the state for special education scores or for gifted scores sends all those scores back to their home school. So they treat the scores in a very different light. It's important for me as I'm going through to look at schools for progress to be able to compare oranges to oranges, not oranges to apples. So we do go through and take out those scores so that I can look at how the general curriculum is being delivered.
Okay. So when you take them out, do you put them where they should go?
On this slide, no, they were not. That can be done.
I just wonder we're just not going to count some of our kids. I mean, I don't have it.
No,
no. We're just taking them out. We're going to.
No. I'm doing that to see how our general curriculum is being delivered. I'm not looking at just to make the scores go up or to do anything like that. We do have some schools that have much more percentage living even within their home school of that.
So is there a slide where you take out the challenge kids from their home schools that their scores go back to?
The other slides already have the gifted and the special education students back. That's how the state uses that data.
But is there a
Rick,
slide
really, the slide doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
It's just a balance.
Well, I just wonder though, we don't take out the challenge kids from, because their schools go back to their home school, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So they got, say for challenge at RC Hill. RC Hill, they get their education at RC Hill. But if a kid should go to Hermanson, Hermanson gets that kid's score.
Correct.
Correct. Do you take, when you look at your numbers, do you take that kid because they weren't taught at Hermanson, do you take that score out of Hermanson when you look at their overall reading score?
When we look at our Ames Web and our other data, we do take the gifted.
I mean, but do you got a slide like
No,
this?
I do not.
Okay. That's a little troublesome for me. If we're going to do it here on low performing, then we should do it on high performing. Hermanson shouldn't, if you're going to.
I can provide that data if you would like for our special education students and our gifted students.
I just worry, I think our most marginalized students are special education students. I just think they're our most marginalized students. That word IEP, Individual Education Plan, Secretary Campbell, comes out and it's like, well, this group can't do anything. And we've just got proof that that's not true. I think Principal Shaflin's going to come up later and talk about the success they had with their students with individual education plans and making AYP in that subgroup. And slides like this make me.
The slides on limited.
If we did it evenly and we backed out challenge kids and we backed out other bilingual kids, then I'd say, all right, we're doing it evenly. It just seems like, and I appreciate that that doesn't seem fair to BJ Ward and Tibbet and Scoff and Salk and Independence, but it sure does seem like we're marginalizing those kids.
Well, and Rick, Tibbet, half of their level at a grade level is the bilingual program. It significantly impacts their scores, where gifted and special education, you don't have half of your grade level be in that subcategory.
A slide like this is insignificant to me for two reasons. One, you're taking them out and we're not counting them anywhere. I think that's what Rick's getting at.
That's
You
what
can't take the percentage out and say, but look how great the scores are, because that doesn't really mean anything, because you got to add those scores back into wherever else you would do. So the slide doesn't mean anything. It just shows that the numbers go up. If the Cubs take out all their losses against the National League, their record goes up, you know? I mean, it doesn't really.
Not really.
It's
No.
not. It's,
No, that's.
my other frustration is we throw a whole lot of resources at those schools because they house those programs. So Tibbet should have higher scores, because don't make the excuse that, well, they house the program for the other schools. We give them the resources to run it. So it's irrelevant. And we get this slide constantly given to us, and it's irrelevant.
So you'd like me to move on?
Yes.
All right, these are the other remaining elementary schools that are not Title I. And here is their data. None of them have 45 students in the LEP category. That's why those columns are blank. The next grid is the math data for elementary schools. And again, any no in any of these categories means a no for overall, that they did not make it.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Did you take out the LEP students for the math since they scored so high?
No, we did not. They are able, you would think that be able to take a math test.
So if you take them out, will the scores go down?
I can take them out as well, but they're not, we're not looking at how they are, the language isn't near as a barrier to take a math test as it is to take a reading test.
Okay.
That's not the answer to the question. The question
No,
I just
I
wanted to know
said
that
no,
if
I
you
did
take
not.
out that LEP
I did not.
group-
I
They
do
use
have.
the numbers when it works. They don't use the same system or model when it doesn't work.
Do you see the inconsistency there, though?
Yes, and I do have that information back on my desk. That is things that I go back and through. It does not make near as much difference when I'm looking at how we are going to provide instruction to students.
Okay, so board members, what I hear you saying is Assistant Superintendent Dawkins need to give you guys those figures so you can better, not that you don't understand it, that you just want those numbers. So that's
It's
what
not even so much numbers, but it's just like the slide when we were given a presentation about academic performance, and they compared our schools to the worst performing schools in the district and the ones with the worst demographics. Stop justifying poor results by manipulating slides to make us look better. Give us the facts.
Because if it was consistent, we would take the scores out when they're high, too.
It's no different than the slide when it compared us to schools that I wouldn't even move within 10 miles of, nevertheless send my children to. So it's as irrelevant as that slide was.
I guess, well, I'll back up. Is there a reason why you take the reading out, not the math?
It's not.
Because the reading would be in English, right? And that's the LEP group would be affected most.
Correct.
Well,
They're having to take the
Can
test.
be word problem, aren't they?
Yes, but there is allowed assistance with that.
So
the language barrier is not near as critical. I understand what you're saying.
Correct. Thank you.
All right. Looking at middle school and high school, this is the reading data. Same standards apply as the elementary slides.
I had a question about this, and one of the problems I see with No Child Left Behind is that we focus on only the subgroups that appear on this slide. In like improvement plans, I read the Romeoville High School's restructuring plan, and Romeoville High School focused solely on the subgroups that failed. And the problem I have with that is, it's not that those other subgroups aren't there. They're just under the arbitrary number that the federal government or the state established.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed, right? It's 45 or whatever the number is.
Right.
I mean,
when I take the data and meet with schools, I meet on all of them. For example, when I met with the elementary schools, we do go over and look at all of them. If they only have 12 students in a subgroup and it's blank, 1 or 2 students, because they might be in special education, or that can dramatically affect a really small number. So we do look at all of those. When we meet with principals, it's not that they get blanks, but it's much more easily affected and the numbers are skewed.
No question.
Is that affected, the 45 included high schools, or is it a higher number?
No, it's still 45.
Still
So-
45?
So where I wanted to go with this, and I will acknowledge completely, Assistant Superintendent Dahlquist, that you had nothing to do with the high schools last year. So let's be clear on that. But you do this year. The black students, say 31.1%. And if we were to look at their AYP last year, they would have been blank. There would have been a hole there because they didn't have enough in the subgroup.
Correct.
When I was reading Romeoville's restructuring plan, it doesn't mention black students, even though we knew back then that if there was like 6 more kids, that it would have been a subgroup. So are we addressing some of these issues when we know this group can be a subgroup the very next year? Even though we can see this group, you can see their actual test scores on the Illinois School Report Card. You can see the test scores for all the kids, even the ones that aren't AYP subgroup. So you could see that the kids in that subgroup were not doing well. And it's like we need no formalized, or I haven't seen any formalized plans for these subgroups. So then all of a sudden they pop up on the screen one year and it's like, oh, we're shocked. This is the first time they've been on the report. But we've known for years what their scores are, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what kind of formalized action do we take for these subgroups that aren't showing up here, but we know these kids are failing and suffering?
When I present the data as I have with the elementary schools, we have all of the subgroups and even a few more that I add. I look at the percentage of exceeds in each of those categories as well. And we do look at that data, and I will repeat that process with middle and high school.
And every student is in at least 2 categories.
Correct.
And possibly as many as 4. So
Might
we're
be
being-
more than 4.
Well, it could be, but I mean, so they're.
It could be
they're
5.
It's not like we ignore them completely if they're not in a subgroup. They might be in a
Right.
different subgroup.
That's a
Correct.
good point, but take the Romeoville example. If you go back last year, there was less than, that would mean there was less than 45 black 11th graders. So, and now this year there was more than that. So they're not going to have a big impact on the overall number. So they're in the overall number, but they can get hidden. That's the basis for doing subgroups.
Right.
So people can't get hidden. It just is really concerning. It's like you can just dip under the number at 44 and we just go, oh.
Not be accounted for.
Yeah, I don't want us to forget about those kids, and then it pops up on the screen this year, and we're like, oh, we got to do something about that. But we've known for the last 5 years that black kids at Romeoville High School's reading score has been low.
Right, and that, again, if we are trying to educate all students, then it's, I look at it this way, is that every student really should have an individualized education plan. And if we're working that way, and I think that that's the way we're going to go, and as the rest of the presentations are brought forth and all these educators out here tonight who are ready to roll up their sleeves and get going, and I think that that's what we're doing, that we're going to have that mindset, and I think the people that we come, all these new administrators, Mr. Buck, I like him. He didn't use acronyms, so he's one up. I got on my Romeoville colors tonight because we're coming out of this. We're going to be right on top, so I think this is the way we're going. So I appreciate you guys' comments. I just want you guys to know that we're all in it together, and sometimes it look like we're fighting, but we're fighting all on the same team. So let's fight.
Sorry.
Rick, just to follow up on your point here, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I guess I get a little nervous at the high school level specifically, and I'm not going to let Bolingbrook High School off the hook here, but how do you just pick a subgroup? There's not a group on that screen there that I'm impressed with.
Point made.
So I get nervous that we give the direction then that, hey, we really need if you got 43 kids or, we can't focus our attention on any one of those groups up there because there's not a number up there that's
What I'm concerned
Asian
about,
kids at Bolingbrook High School, I guess, are doing okay. But I mean,
I think that's a great point, Member Evans. But my point was, when there wasn't a number, were they getting any focus? When there wasn't, that was. I mean, I agree. Now I think all the schools have all the numbers except for, Asian and LEP. So I think they're going to have the.
Good instruction means that you look at each student and look at their progress, whether they're at the bottom, whether they're at the top, whether they're purple, yellow, red, whether they came in with a limo, whether they came in, walking because their parents can't afford a car.
So do we do
good instruction? We need to get better at it. But good instruction, you don't just look at a subgroup and say, we're going to do things better for this group of kids. You have to put systems into place so that you're looking at all students.
I'm going to go back a couple slides here since you opened the door to it.
Okay,
to
which-
math and reading when you talk about all grades. Now, we only
This?
look at our increases or decreases from 09 to 2010. But I'm going to pick on, where are you at here? Let's go back to reading, K through 12.
Okay.
If you look at LEP students, in 2010 they had a 1.5 increase over 2009. But comparatively to 2008, it's only a 0.6. And so on down the list. Matter of fact, economically disadvantaged had a 0.2% increase, but to 2008, it's minus 2.1 still. If you go into math, it's even worse. The Hispanic students had a 0.9 increase from 09 to 10, but compared to 2008, we're still minus 2 points. Minus 4 on Asian. You get down to LEP students, you're at a 1.4, not a 6% increase. At students with disabilities, you're not at a 1.9% increase, you're at a minus 4.8% increase, or decrease, really. And the same thing
And
with economically
I have
disadvantaged.
charts
So-
back in my office that'll even go for 5 or 6 years. It's hard to know which set of data.
But here's where I'm going to get to here. We have continually spent money on new programs, on new staff training, on new acronyms for Liz to use up here. And you say with good instruction we're going to get there. Where are we? I mean, I don't like these vague terms of with good instruction. Have we had it? Because I thought we've had it already. And I thought we've been spending millions of dollars on new programs and new initiatives and new books and new everything so that you can further enhance it. And quite frankly, you're still way below where you were 2 years ago.
In some areas.
In every
some-
area that there's improvement. The areas
Look
that
at-
have a decrease from 2009 to 2010, I don't want to know what they did in 2008 because that's self-explanatory why they didn't do well. The ones that have an increase did so poorly from 2008 to 2009 that how do they go down?
For
So even when
example,
you
the
factor in
overall
this-
continues to climb. I'll give you that it's small.
Member Evans, I
0.2% is what we're clinging our fame to over a 3-year period? Point? Really? That was your, that's,
I don't think that that they're clinging. The facts are the facts, and, you know. And when you went to look at it, and anybody else could do the same out there, and they might, our viewing audience might have done what you did, which is good, and show those things. But right now, we need to go forward. And so, like it said, wait, just let me finish, please. No, it's okay. That. We've already said it, that we're accepting she wasn't in that position, and all those out there for our educators and saying we're gonna do better than that, or there are things that's gonna change, like people gonna change their positions out of the classroom. I'm in agreement with that. So, but right now that's not gonna help us as she look, and so there is no one, I would say, rhyme and reason, but we do have to expect, and we do as Member Gujas and yourself were saying before, give us a percentage, give them something that we want them, just like we expect all children to learn. Let's give the initiative, the goal to the teachers, to the principal. This is what we expect. And then, you know, regardless of all this money, because it's always, you know, you put I want to say, we've got all good teachers, but you put a super great teacher out there. And irregardless of those students with all the social issues that they come with and everything else, we're no longer accepting that as an excuse. So I think that what she's just sharing the fact with us. And then the directors from this board that says, yes, we want this to be better. And nobody can sit here and say that this is good.
Member Kemp, go ahead, Member.
I agree with you, Liz, but I'm not going to continually sit here each year, and in a year from now, we've only increased roughly 7.5 to 8 points over 7 years of No Child Left Behind, from the time we started to the time we finished. Just because in the first year of it we were 25 points over what the No Child Left Behind goal was means nothing to me. The fact is, we've only had about 7 points of growth over 7 years in our district. So I appreciate the interest in stating that we have a goal and we're going to increase test scores by 3% or 6% or 15 or 30 over 15 over 5 but when they don't perform, I'm not going to just sit here and say, okay, well, thank you, you did your best. Come back and talk to me again in 12 months.
No.
The fact is, at Romeoville High School, with a 13-point drop, I am absolutely disgusted that this is the first time we're hearing that there's any problems. Why do I have to wait for the presentation on August 23rd to hear that we're going to have a 13-point drop? Now, I don't expect anybody to look in their magic ball and tell me what ISAT scores are going to be, and PSAE scores, but I sure do expect you over the course of quizzing, giving out English papers, grading assignments, follow up with department chairs, and so on, for you to know that there's a problem. And I don't feel that our money has been spent, the taxpayers' money, in a way that they care to tell us that there's even a problem. So I'm not going to sit here and continually accept, and I don't buy the fact that Faith wasn't in a position. Phil was, our principals were, our teachers were.
Let me add to that in 5 years, basically we've spent $1 billion, give or take a couple, 10 million here or there, Mr. Grisafi, but we spent $1 billion. And in 5 years at Romeoville High School, the reading scores have gone down 17%, from 58% of our kids reading at standard or exceeding to 41%. The numbers in some of the minority subgroups are frightening. What I don't want to hear is that we're tweaking the process. I feel like we need to dramatically change the process. I appreciate the interim principal, Mr. Kinder, making it simple, talking about leadership and just some core values. This, we're at a new program and it'll get a little better, and we'll add another program. That has not produced any results. I think we need a fundamental shift, and I think the shift starts in our belief system. I think our belief system is completely messed up. I honestly believe that there's folks in our district who don't believe certain kids can do it.
I agree with that.
I just honestly believe that, and that thought process is a poison. That thought process needs to be eradicated, and either you change it or you leave. And I know everybody hates when we say things like that, but that's the truth. We either got to change the thought process, because our kids aren't changing. These are the kids we have. If you don't believe our kids can do it, then you should go somewhere where you believe our kids can do it. And I'm not even, I think in the past maybe I've been hard on teachers, and I think that's been unfair, because in really I can't judge teachers until our leadership is right. Our leadership has to be right. I don't know if they're being led right. I don't know if they're being evaluated right. But what I do know is that our kids aren't being taught right. I mean, when we have this kind of decline at one of our high schools, we need some dramatic change. And dramatic change sometimes means new leadership. And that's what happened today at Romeoville High School. And if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. That's not the goal, but the goal is to get better results. And these little tweaks in here, we spent $1 billion in 5 years, and we have worse results at the high school level. Not at the elementary, but the high school level, we have worse results. So $1 billion, how much do we have to spend to get better results? But I think that's the deal. We complicate it. We put more programs when we should be focusing on curriculum, rigor, professional development. Some of this other stuff, I don't know what the value is to it. And that's really for you guys. That's not really fair.
When we see scores like this, as a new member to this group, what are the consequences? What is it that...
A 5% raise?
Excellent, okay. Just thought I'd ask the question.
Am I wrong? Does anybody want to correct me?
Yes.
What is staff increase? What are salaries increasing from last year to this year? Other than administrators? Phil, Gary? 5%. Does that include STEP?
Yes.
5%.
3 and 2.
Benefits cost decrease per employee, correct? Didn't we save them money with the new benefit plan?
It was cost neutral.
Cost neutral. So we get the short end of the stick, they get a bigger salary.
I don't think it's as clear cut as that, but I would just like us to, make a decision right now. Stop wasting this time up here. I've been up since 4 o'clock. I'm ready to go to sleep, and I got some more errands to run tonight. Because if we're just gonna say, this is not, like you say, what is gonna be the plan? We're not gonna put any more money in there, we're gonna have some heads rolling, let's just get it on the table. Because just going over this, we're not getting anywhere with this. And these are the facts, we have it, our educators know it, I'm sure that our principals know it, I'm sure that from the conversation.
Liz, apparently they don't.
What
In
they
7 years, there's only been 7 points of growth. And this board has sat here for at least 3 years saying we expect a whole lot more.
Okay.
So the message has not been given.
Okay, how do we need to give that message then? How
I'm
do you,
waiting to hear that from Faith, apparently.
Wait, no, the board is good the
We
initiative.
do not direct employees other than those folks.
Okay, then I need to hear us as a consensus say, how are we gonna direct our employee to direct their employees to where we're going? Because just talking about these scores, that they're not really the aggregate, they're not the desegregated, that's not getting us anywhere.
Okay, I'll throw an idea.
Okay.
If it doesn't get better dramatically, then the folks in senior leadership will be held accountable for that.
Wow, you can't have that discussion here right now.
Why not?
I mean,
Why not?
Well, because we haven't done that, and that's what we need to do.
I mean, with some,
Well, what does that mean?
You have contracts with some employees. I mean,
Well, no, you have 1-year contracts with all our administrators except for 1 or 2.
Right.
Except for 2.
So we
And
can't
at-
keep throwing everything, knocking down everything. We've got to go in a path, and we say, well, this not gonna work, this not work. We need to start it. What directive do we want to give them now? This is a new school year. This is a new opportunity. They need to go in there with vigor. They need to go in there ready to work tomorrow. What are they gonna leave here with tonight? Because everybody's gonna run and get on their Facebook, or, you know, all the rest of the social networking. Let's give them something now.
Well, I think what they're getting is that mediocrity is not going to be acceptable anymore, and in some cases, less than mediocrity. And Rick, you're throwing out $1 billion, whatever the number is. That's obviously district-wide, but we do spend a lot of money. You may not think you're a high-paid teacher. Run around the central part of the north or the west, whatever, the north central part of this state. Find better salaries. There might be a few out there, not very many. We want results, and what we're saying is, now these results aren't good. We want to see them increased. We're putting a burden on Faith. She's taking on a new responsibility all the way across. We're going to have new principals at schools. We're going to make changes, and the changes start in the classroom. Kids deserve, not only kids, the kids, we all know why we're here, for the children. The people who live in these communities and the people who have businesses in these communities expect us to educate children to a certain level. I'd like to see us exceed those expectations. I'd like to see us blow them off the charts. I'd like to see businesses come in here and say, we located here because not only did you meet whatever AYP, or not only did you meet the standards nationally set, you exceeded them by 10 or 15%. You know, obviously we want to be 100% of everything. That's not realistic. But the reality is we should at least be aspiring to that. And that starts in the classroom, and then it goes to the principals, and or we can start it here and it can run downhill, but I think it's better served coming from the bottom up. So that, we're saying, we're begging, whatever you want us to do, we're asking for the teachers to teach the kids, especially those who aren't getting it. I know it's easy probably to teach the kids to get it, but, and I've never stepped in a classroom since I was, out of college, but I understand, but that's what we want. We want what you want. If you live in our community, if you're sitting in that audience and you live in these two communities, we want smart kids, and we want you guys to challenge the kids. We can't go to all the classrooms. I don't want to do this. I don't want to micromanage this school district. Nobody up here wants to micromanage. We want to give these people up here that are the professionals and ergo into the classrooms the opportunities and the tools to teach the kids. If it's not getting done, that's why these are the results that we see that make it so that we know that it's not getting done, particularly at the two schools that we're talking about right now in the category.
President Quigley,
that's all cute. And
no, but
one
the
question
fact
though,
is,
because I'd like just one question to be answered, because I know you mentioned that everybody got a 5% increase. What are the consequences or the options because we haven't met AYP in these schools. I think that if teachers and staff and administration understand the consequences and the options, then I think there would be a different mindset. So I just want to make sure that I understand what these options and consequences are, and that our community and our staff understands them. I've read through them, but I think that if you state them clearly what our options and consequences will be for not meeting and exceeding these AYP scores, I think it'll give some folks some clear.
I take growth. I would, you know,
Yeah,
growth.
growth.
It seems like I take
I'm
growth.
reasonable, but
I know.
growth
I
has
take
gotta
some
come up.
growth.
But again, can you
I'm not
just
concerned with
explain the
academic
options?
progress right now. I'm concerned with that from 2005 and 2006. Reading for African American students at Romeoville High School dropped 21 percentage points. I want to know how, for the Hispanic population, it went from 35 to 28%. I mean, and on down. 17-point drop overall, 17-point drop in low income. That's in a 3-year time span or 4-year time span. So, I guess in your plan for improvement here in reading, continue literacy cruise system, continue system of data reviews, increased use of guiding reading rubric. How am I guaranteed that any of this is working? Because the test scores show me it's not. Anything that you have the word continue in front of apparently isn't working.
Would you like me to get to
No,
those
I'm not
slides?
done yet. Okay. Also, in math, new algebra core class. Great. Something we haven't done. That's going to be our new measure of standard. Development of common. I mean, these are things that. What does any of this even mean?
I'd like
get to
an
your explaining
opportunity.
of how this ever even happened.
And I can't
I can
explain
answer
how-
that question for you.
No, I'll
And
let
this is
Faith.
well, but I'm going to answer this question because I think President Quigley's got something a little shifted, and I'm going to defend the teachers here. If we give the teachers garbage courses to teach, it doesn't matter if the kids get A's in them. And for so long at the high school, we've had garbage courses, and I'll name a few of them for you: Essential 9 English, Essential 10 English, Algebra Part 1, Algebra Part 2, Pre-Algebra. Those courses and that sequence of courses, there was no way, we know for a fact, if those kids are in those strands, there is no way possible they will pass the PSAE test. And we know it. We absolutely know it. But we have continued those strands. We have kids in those strands today. Tomorrow, there will be kids who are in those strands. Now, this year will be the first year that freshmen won't be in those strands. But we will see similar numbers because we will have juniors that are in those strands. And I believe at Romeoville, I think it stops with, this might be the first year at BHS we don't have juniors in that strand. I think at Romeoville High School we'll have them to their sophomore year that are in those strands. They have no choice. That's not the teacher's fault. Our data shows clearly that if kids are in the proper courses, even if they get a D, they score 5 points higher on the ACT over a kid that gets an A in these courses that are garbage.
What level of employees make up curriculum committees?
Ultimately, those decisions are made by senior administration.
Who sits on curriculum committees? Faith?
Teachers, administrators, and central office staff.
And they make recommendations for curriculum to senior administrators who then make recommendations to us, correct?
Correct.
So I'm not passing the buck of blame to anybody here, but I'm tired of excuses. We didn't teach them well. Okay?
But that's how you get those scores. We teach them classes that we know don't meet college right.
They created the system.
They don't meet any standards. Period. They're classes to push kids through.
So they create their own system. The students fail, and then we get blamed that we didn't make them create a tougher system.
Pretty much.
Again, where's that going to take us now? Where's it going to take it? Like, what did we say? I was just thinking of the co-curriculum. We said we moved up the GPA. We said that, okay, we'll look at them every 3 weeks. You know, then maybe we need to bring this back. We won't see state scores, you know, for another year. But in the meantime, what do you want? What do we want to say? What kind of measurements do we need to put in place?
I want the people who we pay a whole hell of a lot of money to tell me how we're going to fix it. And if they don't fix it, I want new people.
But how, what kind of timeline are we going to put in there?
A year.
Okay.
Give me 6 months. I don't care what you give me. The fact is I can't even create a standard for them because I have to renew their contract before I get the test scores. So even if I get poor test scores next year, contracts are renewed, so I bought them for 2 more years now.
We should have a district-wide common assessment. I believe this district used to have one. That isn't the ISAT or the PSAE.
You know, if I seem
That
frustrated
one that's
here,
based on our curriculum
I
and
graduated
measures.
from Romeville High School, and quite frankly, this is a slap in my face because I know the curriculum I went was a whole lot tougher than this, and I feel prepared me for my future. But now I see people that say, "Oh, great, you went to Valley View, graduated from Romeville High School." What a joke! There's a whole lot of people that came before the people here now that are saying, "You just make us look like a joke."
All right, with all that said, we know where we are, so I want to know where we're going. And I want to know how you think we're going to get there. That's what I think.
Well, there was also just some of the things that he just read out, and so.
Well, I know, Mike,
But Steve,
you can sit
can't-
there and you
They
can't
haven't
belabor
told us
the.
how we got there.
We
you
know.
can't tell us how we're going to fix it if they can't even tell us how we got there. In a year, they couldn't tell us that Romeville High School has a problem. How do I trust these people to fix it if apparently they don't know the problem?
Well, we are
So
where
I
we
want to
are.
hear how we got there.
Okay, well, ask away. There doesn't seem to be any answers coming forth,
Well,
to be quite
then
frank.
sit down. If we don't have answers, why are we here? This was a board workshop. If they don't have answers for us, why are we here?
She's trying to answer. Let's
I'm
just
waiting.
give some respect. And again, you know, maybe you need to, and we'll do it, because I just want to move forward. But let's hear how we got there, and it's all different things. Go ahead.
So is the question on the table plans for improvement or how we got there at the
You
high
can't
school
tell
level?
me how you're going to improve unless you tell me what the problem was.
I wasn't at the high schools last year.
Thank you.
I wasn't at the middle schools
Phil,
last
do you have
year.
an answer? You were here. Derek Kinder, Lindy Steves. I mean, you should know the answers. They should be telling you.
And I have my thoughts on that, and you'll see as there's a common theme of the plans for improvement about what needs to be addressed. That is going on feedback and observations. I did not visit high schools last year and look through classrooms.
So sorry, the guy who did a poor job, we got rid of. So sorry, we don't have any answers. That's what we're supposed to just sit. Supposed to tell the community, sorry, we don't have any answers. We don't know. We don't know why every school's failing.
Let's complete the presentation and then answer your questions.
I have no confidence that you know what the problem is, Phil, or your team. So then how can I have any confidence and tell the community that we have confidence that you can fix it, or anybody here? If you can't tell me what the problem is, then that means you don't understand it. And if you don't understand your problem, you can't create a solution. All we do then is continue to spend $1 billion over 5 years fixing solutions that we obviously don't know the problems.
Mike, I somewhat agree with you, Member Evans, because look at all the workshops and all the things that we went to as board members. And when I look up there and I see an evaluation team, and we've talked about this as a board, new administrators evaluation. And I would like to even add to that, not new administrative evaluation team, but we talked about just an administrative evaluation team, even for our senior and mature administrators. I do believe that those things, if we don't have even the exact, but some of the, like you say, right, it boils down to the classroom teachers. They know the issues that are there. They've got to pass them back up to the assistant principals and the principals. So I do believe, but stating each and every one of how we got there, it was a time and it was a lot of different variables that got us there. So now for us to move forth, and that's when we hold their hands to the fire.
Dr. Schaafstal, what are the root causes that have led to, we were talking about Romeville High School, but what are the root causes that have caused us to not grow in 5 years and decline significantly?
One of the causes that has brought us to this point is the absence of a good alignment of our curriculum with the standards. We have not had the testing program that our children could have been successful in because the courses that they have been taking were not aligned with what the state tests were. The state tests have been changed virtually every year, and that has caused some disconnect between what we're doing and what the kids are being tested on. That would be number one, I think. Number two, I think there has not been as much emphasis on classroom instruction as what this board would appear to desire. There have been emphasis on other aspects of high school education that you cannot measure on state tests. The area of student behavior, which some get tired of hearing about, is important, and it has received a lot of emphasis in the schools. The professional development has been, I think, conducted pretty efficiently, given the coursework and the classes that we have available for youngsters. We have spent money in terms of resources. We have additional specialists in areas, but we continue to assess ever more numbers of children who need specialized help. Those are things that we continue to struggle with, and they will continue to be struggles. The importance, I think, is the alignment of the curriculum. In other words, we have to be tested. We have to be teaching what our kids are going to be tested. Now, some would say that's teaching to the test, but that's the measure that people are going to be held accountable for, and so that is something that we have to work on. Nothing that I said has anything to do with subgroups, because we do believe that our subgroup categories can make progress, they can make growth. I think there's some evidence of that. It's not as much as what we would like, but that is not the that's not the reason why we're at the point where we are tonight.
I'd like to start at the bottom of this slide. It's my belief, looking at this district, that we have spent too much time focusing on behavior, not having principals and assistant principals be quite as effective as instructional leaders. And you'll see that repeating as we go through different plans for improvement. We have pockets of teachers in our district that do an absolutely wonderful job, who have high expectations, good relationships with students, and get results on top of that. We need to have our principals and assistant principals be in the classrooms more, having an agreed upon idea of what good teaching looks like. And I know that sounds easy, but it's more difficult than that. And having conversations so that we agree on what good algebra instruction looks like, what good language arts instruction looks like, and then mandating that administrators get into classrooms, do walkthroughs, get that data back, and then be able to work and be supportive with those teachers that are not making it and holding them accountable for that. And you'll see some themes of that as we go through. Also, a focus on differentiated and engaged instruction. We will spend quite a bit of time this year at both Institute Days looking at differentiated instruction. We had summer training just recently on engaged learning. And as we're working on this at the elementary levels with differentiated instruction, especially and with reading, our overall scores do not show this improvement, but our exceeding students in grades 3, 4, and 5 in reading did go up. And we had a 4-point jump at 5th grade reading for those kids, that many more kids that are at the engaged level, the exceeds level. Sorry. We also are making a big deal when I'm talking with principals about having our staff teach to exceeds, not just to meets. It's my belief that we don't just, well, who are at the bottom and can we take to the meets? We teach to the exceeds, and that will push other students along. And I don't think we've always done that as a district. I don't think that that's been a focus K-12. At this point, I would like Chris Schaeflein to come up. He's going to talk just briefly about our efforts to teach more to the exceeds, not just to meets.
While he's walking up here, Faith, you made and I'm going to ask if it was just a poor choice of words or if you believe this, but the term you used was we have pockets of good teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Pockets.
I wasn't defining whether it was a small pocket or a big pocket. I'm saying that it's not every one of our teachers. We have varying levels of results from different teachers. It's not that all of the teachers are getting the same kind of results and they all need the same professional development and they all need the same training. We need to look at teachers as individuals just like we look at students as individuals.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm pleased to share with you a few examples of our efforts at the middle school level to help students be more successful. The middle school educators realize that in order to give our students the best opportunity for success on later examinations, that those students need to reach the exceeds level on ISAT. In other words, we need to get more students to the exceeds level. One of our strategies to accomplish this is to maximize the number of students experiencing a more challenging curriculum. To this end, all of the middle schools have increased the number of students that are being placed in the honors program and are exploring creative ways to advance our most talented students through the course of study. In addition to those efforts, we've also incorporated the college readiness or the exceed standards into the district-wide curriculum development. For example, our new language arts curriculum guide provides teachers with examples of rigor. These examples of rigors have their foundation in the knowledge and the skills that the ACT Corp has identified as necessary for 8th grade students to have obtained if they are going to be consistent with the college-ready targets. In addition to the curriculum materials, these examples of rigor have been part of the professional development that teachers have received during their best practice meetings that have been facilitated by Mr. Zucker at the district level and then reviewed and reinforced at our at our building level monthly department meetings. As I said, this is just an example of a few things that have been going on to try to get our students to be more successful and help them achieve at a greater level.
Principal Schaeflin, I want to take a moment to congratulate you and Jane Adams and your staff and your students. You are the only school in our district that made AYP. And for the audience, that would mean that you made it with the all category, either meeting the standard or safe harbor. In the all category, the whites, blacks, Hispanics, low income, and special education students. Did I miss any groups?
I think you got them.
Okay. And in particular, you made some dramatic improvements in a group that I do think is always marginalized, and that's the special education group. So I don't know what you did. I hope you know what you did, and I hope you're able to repeat that and share that with your colleagues on what you did. But that's a great job. Thank you.
I appreciate the comments. Thank you very much.
Me and you had a discussion about that restructuring plan right here, and it's great to see that you implemented that restructuring plan and achieved those goals. And I think that's what we expect. So I thanks so much.
Thank you.
Also, we do have a new administrator evaluation tool. It's not for new administrators. It is for all school administrators. And a big focus of that is on instructional leadership, and we spent quite a bit of time discussing it with the administrators on August 6th. Now I'd like to discuss plans for improvement.
Sorry, Faith, real quick, if you go back. And, you know, I know we talked about the new administrative evaluation tool, and it has some significant changes in it from where where we started, the previous evaluation tool. But I would like to offer up or suggest that I think part of that tool, or maybe a modification of that tool, should be some kind of limitation that if you don't meet the academic portion of that performance tool, then you have a cap on how high on that your rating you're going to be. So if we have a below, a meets, or an exceeds, you could get an exceed on every single thing. But if you don't meet your
growth
the criteria for growth in the evaluation tool, it's impossible for you to get beyond a
And part of the difficulty, as you've already stated, is we have to do the administrator evaluations before we get state.
That's an easy fix, though, if we had a common assessment.
I mean, if we're serious about academics, and I know this is the first time we've ever instituted some academic growth measurements in the evaluation tool for the first time for the audience. You know, let's take it a step farther. I mean, is that a feasible solution? Is that illegal? Can we legally?
What's funny is by 2015 we have to.
Well, yeah, right.
It's the law. The state law says that administrators have to have student growth as a significant portion of their evaluation. why we're gonna wait. There's no need to wait that long to 2015 to make that happen. You know, so, and I hear you, Assistant Superintendent Dawkins, we don't have a way to do that, but we could create a way to do that. Correct?
Correct.
We could create that way. I believe some people that have been around a lot longer than me, this district might have used to have some form of formative assessment.
Yes, and we do have common assessments at the elementary level in reading.
Okay, so we could do that now with reading at the elementary level.
Correct.
Okay. And we wouldn't have to, we would have those results before.
Benchmarking is given 3 times a year, and benchmarking is just when we look at students and how they are doing in reading.
So then
we
why
also
don't-
look at the growth models.
So the questions are, why don't we do that at elementary now then? Because we could. Why don't we have a formative common assessment at middle and high school?
I think you'll see that that's one of the goals that I'm suggesting we do. All right, looking at reading, I spent my morning this morning going around and discussing the grade 8 reading strategies at each of the middle and high schools. As you know, we've done literacy for learning, but there hasn't been a K-12 focus. And what I am in the process of building, and it's already out there, so a lot of it is built, is really focusing on reading comprehension strategies that we can use K-12. For example, September is the month that we are going to be working on building background knowledge. And our professional development that is provided by myself and the team here at the Ad Center is being sent out each month. We also created a wiki where there's all kinds of information that can be shared on the reading strategies with that. We also did a day-long training with the middle and high school literacy coaches, and those people aren't paid positions. Those are people that work in a department but have taken on the extra role of being a literacy coach, and gave them training about how to facilitate meetings and trainings and get the word out there. One of the things that I don't think we've done a good job of doing, especially at the upper levels, is being really explicit about why we teach these comprehension strategies. We work on background knowledge and we do these activities with students, but we haven't told them that it's important for them to build background knowledge or do visualizing or any of these other ways when they face other kinds of text. So we're, in a sense, helping them with the text that they have in front of them, but we're not helping them become better readers. And there are also responsibilities that each of the administrators have along with these grade 8 reading strategies of having this focus, being able to discuss it at Institute Day. They have to give me the plan of how they are going to have all this communication between the literacy coaches at the different departments within their school. They also are being required to go into classrooms and see that there is evidence that these reading strategies are being taught. The literacy cruises that are up there, we've been implementing that for a while at the elementary schools, and we will be continuing to do that, and that's for some more system of accountability. We want to make sure that what each of the principals at the middle schools or the high schools' idea of what good literacy instruction is also what we believe it is at the Ad Center. So we would cruise a building, they would get information back on that, and we can work toward bettering improvement. Again, this focus here is, I agree somewhat with Member Evans when he says, you know, just another program. Just another program isn't going to make the difference here. It's what we believe and what we think can happen in our regular classrooms. It's what's happening daily in our schools and our classrooms that is making the difference, not a program or a pull-out intervention. And we have to strengthen that.
Assistant Superintendent Dahlquist, I appreciate everything you just said. But what I feel like we're doing is you're still throwing on more programs, and we don't execute the ones we have well. I'm concerned. I went on several literacy cruises with you, and we all heard when you said that we were at a 59% execution rate on those literacy cruises. So now I think elementary is getting a new program, PALS, but we didn't execute the program we have now, only at a 59% level. So
in May, the elementary schools were at 80%.
Well, that's news. Didn't hear that before. But I just have this problem that we're having new programs on programs that we haven't shown, to steal a phrase that our newest principal said, Principal Kinder, just some leadership and some direction. I feel like we need more of that and less new programs, more leadership and direction, because we're going to have literacy cruises and guided reading, literacy for learning, PALS, grade 8. And it just feels like, here's another program, this one will be executed at 59%, and we're spending all our time chasing all these programs, and we roll out a new one every year, and hopefully that means an old one goes away. If not, I don't even know where your folks get the time to do all of this.
I wouldn't say that any of the things on here are new, other than the focus and the emphasis
Is the
is
PALS
new.
program new?
Pardon?
Is the PALS program?
PALS is, and it's a small intervention program that is used with struggling readers. It's not something that's being implemented in every single classroom.
Was our old program a failure, or was it not executed properly?
Which old program are you talking
Whatever program
about?
you had before. Did you had nothing
Our reading
for,
room
you
and
had
our
nothing
Anna
for
room?
struggling readers before that?
We did not have a research-based, other than the reading in the Anna room, for students that aren't at our top tier. That's something we've been working on for 2 years, to come up with an intervention that would be research-based, that students would be placed in. We all-
Just
Sorry.
one sec.
Yes.
Member Gujas, just wanted to emphasize, and I know you guys are knowing it, but if we are holding them accountable, I just think, like you, I agree with you, if we taking away a program, keep adding them in the money and all these things, but if we're sitting here and saying that we're gonna hold them accountable, can we just give them that opportunity and, you know, come back and, you know, we've got progress reports for them, instead of just, you know, not giving them.
Measured by what?
How will we measure? We said we was gonna give them some percentage, right? So when they come back, and again, as we're talking about the teachers, then isn't it their responsibility to monitor? If we don't wanna micromanage, shouldn't they be bringing it back to us?
Bringing what? I'm not-
Say you said, she said the percentage now is 80%. Wouldn't that percentage should be into the 90s the next time?
What? Yeah, of course. I just don't understand how we have poorly executed programs, so we add more. So we can have even more poorly executed programs. And I'm not sure, when we look at the reading score, was it from, because we had that in May, so was it from, does that program even work? And how do you tell? How do you tell that program works when roughly a little over half of the folks are doing it? Is it having an effect? If it is working, which it may be working, then why aren't we making sure it's at 100%? Or if it's not working, why aren't we doing something different? But see, we don't have, well, I guess at elementary we do have an assessment for that, but clearly at high school it sounds, and middle school it sounds like we don't. What are we doing with those things? Before we add more, I think what we need to hold senior leadership accountable for, principals accountable for, is leadership, belief systems. They'll just throw a new one next year. They'll just be the latest, greatest that some vendor will sell us on, that they probably funded the research study that makes their program so great. You know, and we got away from core values. It's just leadership, you know, direction. Those are the pieces that I think we suffer in. I don't think we suffer in programs. You know, I don't think that's our weakness.
Right, but I believe we've made a statement here tonight that I would be very shocked, disappointed, frustrated, and anything else if they brought anything back other than some greater results. I cannot, it has been made plain, whether it was in passion, whether it was in motion, whether it was in disrespect to our speaker. I think it has been made plain that that's not going to be tolerated. So I can't, I feel that we should allow them, if this is what they say is going to work, because remember, again, we're not in the classroom. And since we're holding them responsible, you know, if we need a timeline for them to get back to us before that year, I'm willing to say that. Let's put those things in there. But I don't want to sit here and say, you know, that this is not, I can understand the money and all those other factors, but if they say that these things are going to work, then we're holding them responsible. And if they don't, then
I
we,
agree
the
with you.
board, have.
I'm more where Member Evans is, where I don't necessarily see anything
Well, I'm
startlingly
expecting,
new.
I
I don't see anything new here. I see more of the same.
I agree with you, Liz, though.
Yeah, let's hold them accountable.
Go ahead, Faith.
As I was saying, plans for improvement in reading, I have asked Paula Bolin to come up and talk about our guided reading rubric, which is, again, you'll see this theme of getting very clear about what it is we need to teach.
She's just happy she wasn't first.
What it is that we need to teach, and then getting it out there, giving support and the accountability to have it happen.
Excuse me, Ms. Bowling, before you start, I'd like to congratulate R.C. Hill. This year is their 50th birthday.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yes,
sign
this is our
outside.
50th year of educating students. We started
Yeah.
about the 16th of August in 1961. So this is our 50th school year. Not mine, though. Just in case you were wondering. Not quite. And I did have some prepared remarks, but I guess I'm going to more address your concerns that do we have leadership and how are we going to make an impact on what we already have, which is a guided reading rubric. That was created last year. We used it last year as building administrators to look at what each classroom in our buildings were doing in guided reading. It was shared with our teachers. We had a common vocabulary. We knew what each area meant, so now everybody is on the same page. When I was going through the test results in my own building, which have been better, we were a little disappointed not to have made more growth, but when I look at my reading scores and the difference in the number of children that exceeded, it's because we took the time to do some individualized work with them. And we put forth the challenge to the teachers that, can we do that in math as well? Is this something that we have enough passion about and time? And how are you as a teacher, as a grade level, and as a building, how are we going to make a difference for children, not just in reading, but also in math? It was very disappointing to us not to have done extremely well in math. It's the first time I've been a building administrator there since 1983. I think this is the first time since about 1985 we haven't made really strong progress in math. So yes, we do need to increase that. And one of the things I'm happy to say is the district is working on math curriculum for next year to increase that. We need an increased vigor. But going back to my guided reading, you want me to leave, I will. This year, we're going to make an implementation so that not only are the teachers using that guided reading rubric to set some professional goals for themselves. We have a number of outstanding teachers in our building, and they want to get better. And they want to be exemplary. They don't want to just be fully implementing. They want to be the exemplary person. Tell me what I need to do. And I think that's where teachers are as a whole. They need to know, what do we want from them? What is it that makes them exemplary? And I don't necessarily think it's one test, but I think that as you look at what you're teaching them and how well they're growing, and the building administrators are there to support them and to provide some leadership for them, they will make the difference. They want to do well. They want their students to do well. So this year in guided reading, we're going to meet individually with at least 20 teachers. Most of us will meet with each of our teachers at least twice a year to see where they are on that continuum and where they need to improve. We also use it in leadership team and with our reading teachers to look at where the professional growth opportunities are. And each building does use their data somewhat differently, but all of it is to drive professional growth so that we can increase the reading scores for students in our buildings, in our classrooms, and in our district. Thanks.
Superintendent Dahlquist, one of the problems I have is that we know what works. The research is out there, studies are out there. We can go model other districts. And you know, things that you hear from other districts isn't that they added a new program. You hear things about horizontally aligning their curriculum, vertically, I've got them mixed up, but whatever, horizontally aligning their curriculum, vertically aligning their curriculum. Like what I'm doing in this English class is supported by what's happening in the social studies class. Mm-hmm. Those things we don't seem to hear too often. What I hear is new programs. I don't hear about, you know, we're going to align our curriculum, you know, K through 12. We've heard that a little bit, but I don't hear us talking about it, you know, across the grade level, across the subjects. These are the things that our successful peers are doing. It's not new, it's not, you know, it's not rocket science. What it is the plan is easy. I think the execution is extremely difficult, and it takes extremely talented folks out there to do it. and that
And we
part's
haven't.
hard. What I struggle with is we don't even seem to have the plan, which seems to be the slightly easier part. If we have the correct plan, then the hard part is executing that plan. And I will give you that it's going to take some talented folks in this room and at our schools to execute that plan, but we don't seem to have it. And
I'm sorry if I didn't explain it, that the guided reading rubric is getting very clear, looking horizontally, what does good reading look like? And we've been all over the place with that. And teachers have done what they want to do. Buildings have gone in different places. We implemented a common reading assessment so that I could use data to be able to look at that. And these guided reading rubrics, the part of it is getting very clear about what good reading looks like, and then being able to articulate that and support it. Yeah, coming up with a guided reading group was a day process. Then getting it out there, explaining it, getting into classrooms, looking at that, and then this year making it part of the administrator evaluation tool. That's a long continuum in looking at that. But I don't want you to think that we are not looking at what does good instruction look like and making sure that that's communicated and then implemented. We do have some things that we need to work on, K-12. I think that the reading strategies is also a place, in having conversations just with the middle and the high school folks when I met with them to put together the training opportunities for the literacy coach. What their idea of visualizing in 6th grade was way different than what we talk about in 5th grade. We saw that same thing in math. For those of you who work with me, I've already heard, I just had a middle high school moment where I'm learning that they have different ways of teaching, they have different vocabulary, they have different, and we need to fix that. I'm in the position to do that, but I've also just begun.
Agreed.
Moving on to math. In math, I'm really excited about some of the work that has been done with the Algebra Core, and a lot of the work had been done before I came on board. Something that is new is this algebra checklist that we're going to be using. I'm going to call Rachel Kinder up, and she's going to explain briefly what that is. But you'll see again, it's about getting very clear about what good instruction looks like, and then providing support and accountability.
Good evening. As you know, I have the challenging yet rewarding job of helping putting these things into place. And so I'm happy to lend a secondary voice tonight, albeit new. But I also do want to give a little background, because the natural question is, how did we get here? Why are we here? And I know everyone wants to look at that. And I asked myself that question, having kind of an outside or new perspective. Some of the things that were mentioned earlier in regards of why are we here, I think Member Gu just mentioned it before. One of our mission statements is we believe that all children can and will learn when presented the opportunities to do so. Well, not all of our children have been given these opportunities. We realize this, and it's really a fatal flaw of the system, but we are correcting that, and that has been with the elimination of our lower level strands. Furthermore, in math, we have eliminated algebra. That was mentioned as well. It would take some students 2 years to cover the content in algebra that was normally covered, that should be covered in 1 year. And that's how we are getting back to where we need to be with Algebra Core. In looking at our data, we did find, and this was mentioned earlier this evening, that no matter how the students scored in those lower level strands, even if they got A's and B's all along, when it came time to sit down and take that test, they were not prepared to do so, because they were not presented with those opportunities that they needed to be exposed to. So that is where we are closing the gap with the creation of this new Algebra Core class. The Algebra Core class is aligned to the college readiness standards. As you are aware, the K-12 Vertical Articulation Committee for Math Curriculum sat down together, K-12, and I don't know that that has happened for quite some time. And they found gaps in the system. They found things that were repeated, duplicated. They found inconsistencies. And they meticulously went through and found these things so that we can make sure that these things are covered. The Algebra Core curriculum is now going to replace what was formerly Algebra Part 1 and Part 2, but we know that just increasing the level of rigor is not going to be enough. We know that we needed to support the teachers. The district has supported us in this effort by providing professional development for the teachers to show what effective instruction looks like. Another reason that I would sit back and think, well, we have all these trainings, all these programs, but nothing happens. Well, there was never follow through in many cases of how is the actual implementation in the classroom going. So as you've heard tonight, we do walkthroughs. We've done these in the past at Bolingbrook High School last year, and we will continue to do these for Algebra Core and moving into all other subjects. That brings us to the Algebra Core Integrity Checklist. We sat down and we said, what does quality instruction look like for this Algebra Core curriculum? How will we know that it is being implemented with fidelity and integrity? Because increasing rigor by itself, that's not going to get the job done. So we came up with some key factors that need to be present when we visit classrooms, when teachers sit down and self-reflect and reflect with their peers. And some of those things, for example, are having a clear lesson purpose established, setting the stage for the lesson, having active engagement, ensuring that formative assessment is part of the lesson, clarification of meaning and providing support to organize the content, and the application of what we expect students to know and be able to do. So these are some of the things, and we sat down and said, these are critical. Do the teachers know what they look like? Now we're going to get into the classrooms on a regular basis and ensure that this is what we are seeing. So we have this tool in place. We have a team of administrators from RHS and BHS who in a week will get together at both buildings and go through the classrooms to see what we're observing and make sure we are all on the same page about what these things actually look like in the classroom. And this is, teachers are involved in this process as well. From there, we need to compare that to student achievement. So students will take a district common assessment, and we will compare that data to what we observed in the classroom. Because just saying that we think this is effective and now we see it, great, and a story, no. We need to know that it's producing results. So at 3 weeks, meaning 3 weeks from tomorrow, this assessment will be given, and we will be able to sit down with what we observed and this data, hard numbers, and say, is it making a difference? I feel that this is different from programs that have cycled through, and it's a different way of thinking, and as has been said tonight, it all comes down to beliefs. And we believe that our students can do this. We believe that our teachers have the skills to do this. Now we just need to see it and make sure that it's put into place. I'm only speaking about Algebra Core tonight, but I am confident that this will evolve into other math classes in the curriculum, and most importantly to other areas in our core subjects, science, social studies, English, and from there we can spiral outward. So I believe it's a cyclical process, and one that there needs to be the constant follow-up with, where we just don't say, okay, math teachers, here's a great training, go implement it. And then we don't ever have any follow-through of A, is it taking place? B, is it showing results? And when and if it is, then we can share the wealth and make sure that everyone, all of our teachers, are modeling these ideal strategies or methods with their instruction, so that all of our students are presented with those right opportunities, and all of our students can and will learn. Because the bottom line is, you have to believe, and we do, that all of our students can do this. We just need to put the teachers in front of them that are equipped to get them there. And with the Algebra Core, it is a big challenge that some of the students coming to us may not be prepared for that. And by the way that this course was designed and built, we know that the scaffolding will be in place so that the students are supported as they are being pushed up to this bar, which honestly should have never been lowered, but it was, and now we're getting back to where we are. So, any questions?
Thank you.
I think all that's great. Just the only thing you didn't mention, and I believe it's been told to me before, but what remediation tools do you have available to you, or do you plan to use for those folks that aren't following the program? And I mean program as in your program, not new program.
Sure, absolutely. That's another thing where I saw the gap, because as a teacher, I would go through the evaluation process, and there was little relation to what I was learning in trainings or what I was being told was important to do in the classroom. This has been built into a part of our teacher evaluation tool, because we can show how these things are aligned to the Illinois Professional Teaching Standards. And we are held to those standards as educators. So every single teacher is held accountable for those. So they are part of the conversation in the evaluation process. And that only happens once or twice a year for non-tenured, every other year for tenured. So that's not going to be enough. That's like waiting until April for your test scores. So what we need to do is more frequently. So for example, at Bolingbrook last year, our focus was, we realized that when we walked into a classroom, it was not clear to us, nor the students, what the purpose was of the instruction or the activities that were taking place. So we really focused on learning targets and establishing a clear purpose for the lesson. But that wasn't just enough to tell the teachers they needed to do it. We got back in the classrooms daily basis and took down data on each classroom. And then we had conversations, individual conversations with each of those teachers of, this is what we need to see. These are examples. These are not examples. This is what we saw in your classroom. This is how you could improve it. And then we went back around and continued this process till we were at easily up to 90%. Any given day, you could walk into any classroom at Bolingbrook High School and see an appropriate learning target posted on the board that was linked to district and state standards, that the learning activities that were taking place were clearly linked to that learning target, and the students, most importantly, could articulate that learning target. It was the basis of instruction, and it was the basis of assessment. So once we felt that that was established, we could cycle in anew. And so it's, yes, it's part of the evaluation process, but it needs to be more short-term and benchmarked, so it's not a one-time-a-year thing.
Assistant Principal Kinder, obviously, last year that was starting to work for at Bolingbrook High School, because you did have a nice gain in your math scores. And your math scores are 11% higher than the ones at Romeoville High School, so congratulations on that. I think what you just said makes a heck of a lot of sense. We need some more Kinders. Are there any more of you? You guys are making some good sense.
Just two.
No, we have more of them out there.
One of the
different names.
questions
Right.
I have a couple. For our kids that are caught in those bad strands, that are still caught in those, is there any plans to address their needs? And I don't know, I think it might be your juniors might be your last ones, or maybe I'm not sure. I think at East High School it's a little different. Is there any plans to address those kids, or are we gonna have to wait another year and basically get the same scores we got this year? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, there are plans to address those students, because we can't just say, okay, we'll wait till 4 years from now when our freshmen have had the privilege of being exposed to this all the way through. So there are plans in place, and part of that is looking at the curriculum that is currently being taught for what may have previously been considered a lower level strand. Students, freshmen who started out last year with Algebra Part 1, they won't go on to a Part 2, but they'll be met with a core that's been modified to meet their needs, with the focus of preparing them for the next level so that they can make up for that lost time, so to speak. So there are plans in place, and we're not ignoring the fact that there are still students with us who may not have had that exposure and who will eventually need to show that they are college and career ready in a year or 2 years or 3 years from now.
One of the knocks I have on No Child Left Behind is that it tests kids at 11th grade. So I tend to get concerned about what happens to them their senior year. I know that currently the state only requires 3 years, and that's what our district requires. Some districts require 4 years of math. What are we doing to strengthen our math program past the test? You know, because that really helps make our kids college ready, work ready, and you know, we don't really measure that currently right now. We see what their 11th grade score. What are we doing to strengthen the curriculum overall? And then kind of in combination with that question, some of the things that are happening, like that happened last year at Brooks and are being expanded to other places, is going to almost create the need for some different courses at the junior year and senior year. Can you talk about those things?
Sure. An example would be our 8th graders at middle school through a pilot program, which is expanding, happy to say, who are exposed to honors geometry. So when they come to us, and they're with us for 3 years, we will be out of math courses, so to speak. So we are in the process of creating, or will be in the process of creating, a new math course to expand the offerings that are available for students who are in that situation. Earlier this evening, I heard Mr. Schaeflein mention the alignment to college readiness standards. I've never really had a conversation with the middle school principal where that was brought up. Not that I've had, you know, so many conversations with middle school principals, but it was just great to hear that, because that is the end goal. And I think with that in mind, we can continue to build and push, because our students will be coming to us more and more ready. And so Algebra Core will look different. It will be an even higher level course in the future, because our students will be coming to us ready to take on that challenge, and then we need to be ready to meet those needs to push them higher, because it's not we get you to junior year and we just we just stop, because those students still need to go on to college. They still need to go on to their career. So we are aware of that.
What are you going to talk to us about tonight?
Test 1 2.
It works.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Question? Okay.
Any other? Faith?
Thanks. Just the other things that are on here, we will be working on creating a common assessment for middle school math, and that's not just at the end of the game when the race is over. That will also be a pre-assessment to see where kids are at, because we need to know that. We need to know what they know before we know what we need to teach them. It'll also be assessment middle of the road so that we can reteach what we need to, and then a common end assessment as well, and we haven't had that. That is kind of what we've done with I have ISET quizzes. That doesn't sound really spectacular, but that is a common assessment. It's very short that we've used with elementary students to see whether they are ready for the different strands that are on the state testing, such as algebra, relationships, geometry, and we had quizzes that we used. And those buildings that implemented those quizzes with a lot of fidelity this year were our schools that had gains. So we'll be doing that district-wide. We'll also be working on making sure that we have the same time tests and things that we're working on for math facts as we go through. That is the end of the district presentation, and I will entertain questions. I know we've kind of been as we go, so if you don't have further questions, the next thing that I would like to do is to bring up some of the administration from Romeoville High School so that we can talk more about the improvement efforts that need to be made there in reading, especially because of their decline.
Go for
Derek,
it.
come on up.
All right, thank you, Faith. I can't pass up this opportunity, but I have to take a. Obviously, as you can tell from speaking, my wife speaking there, I don't win many arguments at home, but I do have this one that I got to throw at her. Rachel, you wore out the microphone. Officially. That was good. Okay, with that being said, I'll hear that later, I'm sure.
You're just digging it deeper.
Sorry, Rach.
You're digging that hole deeper again.
Yes.
You did not go there.
I guess she's not going to tell you about that successful
having a
program
really
they
good
had
day.
at high school.
We were having such a good day.
Yes. All right. As you heard Rachel speak, obviously we share a home and we also share a lot of those belief systems that we have in place. As it goes without saying that we as a staff at Romeoville High School are obviously disappointed with the lack of progress in our goal in meeting AYP or adequate yearly progress. I will not stand here tonight and make excuses for the lack of achievement displayed on our standardized tests. What I am here to convey to you that I am confident that our students will rise to the occasion when presented with a rigorous curriculum implemented with dynamic and effective instruction. It is our responsibility to make sure that we eliminate all distractors or all distractions and focus solely on student achievement. I will say this, that there has to be a change in the focus at Romeoville High School. Again, there has to be a change in the focus at Romeoville High School. The direction must start with an unwavering belief system that all students can be successful. By successful, I mean that all students are college ready by the time they leave RHS. From here, it is our responsibility to ensure that they are met with a rigorous curriculum and that our teachers are prepared to deliver that curriculum with an effective, engaging manner to meet students where they are and to move them forward. I realize that this is a daunting task, as I alluded to earlier, but this is a commitment of this leadership team to ensure that the teachers are provided with the high level of support, the professional development, to make these goals a reality for Romeoville High School. Furthermore, it is the commitment of this leadership team to ensure that we are all held accountable for the students' achievement. We will accomplish these goals by implementing a few things that we have as far as a plan as what we need to implement that are non-negotiable at Romeoville High School. We need to ensure that we have a common understanding on what students need to know and be able to do by establishing clear learning targets. And those targets need to be based on the college readiness standards that are non-negotiable. Those goals or those focuses or those targets need to be communicated to the students in student-friendly terms so they understand what's going on daily in the classrooms. We have to have assessment built into the curriculum delivery system to inform instructions and support individual growth throughout on a day-to-day basis. Implementing a grading system that is truly reflective of what it is our students know, based on a level of mastery versus a level of compliance, okay? Providing academic interventions when students are not successful, and those interventions are not limited to, but should be, reteaching and reassessing to determine a student's level of proficiency. Reassessing our own interventions to make sure that the ones we are using are working, and if those ones are working, we keep them, and if not, we get them out. And how do we measure those? Base them on student outcomes. Providing structure to staff and ensure that collaboration surrounding best practices is taking place on a regular basis. I am confident with a clear focus on student achievement is established, and RHS as a proper guidance, with our RHS has the proper guidance and leadership team in place, that the staff as RHS is capable of making this happen. Ultimately, it is our responsibility to make sure that every student walks through the door at RHS is met by adults that believe in them and will not accept failure from them. It is then that we will see the true potential of our students represented.
Thank you. You got a lot of work in front of you, my man, and I hope that you're up to the task. I know you will try. It's your utmost ability, and I know that I believe that the rest of the board has confidence in you to try and tackle this. So, good luck.
While you're acting as principal.
Yes, exactly.
If you do that, I don't know how you couldn't be successful.
Yep.
Right. And I apologize if I was yelling or I seemed like I was yelling at you when I was talking that, but. I've sat in this audience for probably about 7 years, and this is the first time I've had the opportunity to speak about the place where it needs to be as far as the leadership goes. So it's something I'm passionate about. It's something my wife is passionate about. It's something obviously Mr. Mitchum's passionate about. I know Faith is definitely passionate about it, and the teachers at RHS are passionate about student achievement as well. And like I could speak to Mr. Gugis about, I definitely see there's potential in our staff, and there's unlimited potential in our students. The belief system has to be there, and these people need to be inspired, and they need to be led.
So be it.
Don't apologize for your passion, please.
Go forth.
Yeah, go make it happen.
I think that's what we wanted to hear. So thank you and Godspeed.
Thank you.
Wait a minute. I just have to say that. Mrs. Steves, did you have something to say?
Thanks for asking, but I think Derek said it all.
No, he can't say what you have. I want to hear what you have to say.
It's been a pleasure working with John Sparlin these years, but I'm thrilled that you have appointed Derek as interim principal during this time of our growth and our rebirth into some good academic growth. So I will stand behind him and do what I can do to be his assistant, like I did with a lot of other principals before him.
That's right.
And I've got my fingers crossed that our kids will not disappoint you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've heard a lot tonight. I just think everybody up here has high expectations. We have high expectations of our students, we have high expectations of our teachers, our administrators, and hopefully there'll be some great things that come out of this. This has been a long time coming, and I think we're going to move forward, and I know we're looking forward to seeing what the numbers look like in 3, 6, 12, 15, 18 weeks. So good luck to everybody. Moving on down the agenda, legal services. Mr. Alpern,
No
keep
report.
it short.
No
Thank
report
you.
this evening.
That's as short as it gets. AFT. Valley View Council. No report. Valley View Office Personnel. Apparently no report. Old business? None. New business? Apparently none. Questions from the public on actions we have taken this evening? Please state your name and where you're from.
Jorletta Payton, Bolingbrook, Illinois. Good evening. Just something real short that I want to talk about. I did want to congratulate you all for raising the bar for our students involved in activities. I think that that is a big part of closing the gap that we find between our children and being college ready. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. On this board back here, one of the items listed is diversity. And I've been up here to talk about diversity before. Specifically, when I was speaking about diversity before, it was having the teachers in our classroom reflect the diversity of the different ethnicities reflected in our communities. Tonight, and when I am speaking about this, I am not speaking against any individual, but I have a concern about the diversity in our administration. We have named a number of principals and assistant principals lately, and I personally have not seen the diversity that I feel is reflective of the people in our communities. A little bit over 16 years ago, my husband and I moved to Bolingbrook, and one of the main reasons that we chose to live in Bolingbrook is because of the diversity that was reflected in every neighborhood in the town. And that is why we remain in Bolingbrook. And what makes it one of the most unique places, I think, to live in this nation. However, I am concerned that I am not seeing that diversity flow down into our buildings, our school buildings. And I know that we say that diversity is one of the values, one of the things that we value, but until we really make a decision that we are going to actively look for and hire people that reflect our population, I don't think that it's going to happen. So I put before the board to really think about that as we move forward. I don't know if the answer is to have a diversity committee. I don't know if the answer is to have something like they have in, I think it's professional football or baseball, one of the two, where for any major positions you must interview a minority. But I think that we can do better. No, I know that we can do better, and it's something that I am very concerned with. Thank you.
The December 13th board meeting, Darletta, there will be an action plan presented to the board for their consideration to do, to address your issue, because it's our issue as well.
Thank you.
December 13th, be here.
I will, thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Seeing none. Announcements by the board. We addressed some of those earlier, but anyone? School starts tomorrow. Welcome back, kids. People watching on TV. Watch out for the kids running around at the school bus stops. And one of the more fascinating or funny things I've always found is Dr. Schaafstal said to me, there's always people running into our school buses. How they can not see those big yellow buses is beyond us, but stop running into our buses, please. Administration, none. Public, none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. We stand adjourned.